Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that family trip keeps getting pushed. I hear it every day from business owners and busy professionals, and I felt it too. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss and your host. After 10 plus years of planning work and personal trips to over 20 countries, I became the guy who found the deals and turned points into upgrades. This show helps you turn everyday business and personal spend into points and miles for premium travel. Each week, you'll get step by step tactics and short episodes, plus expert guests with specific use cases tied to your most asked questions for travel plans that'll help support your business, goals, and your life. Go ahead and grab the free Points and Miles cheat sheet in the show notes to speed up your learning. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another episode of World Travel Made Easy. On this week's episode, I'm excited to have Suzy May. She's the host of the Wonder World School and Slow Family Travel podcast. She's also a money coach for people who want to financially plan for slow and long-term travel. If you're tuning in today, you should get excited because if you've ever thought of, hey, I'm paying too much for summer camps, I want to go to Europe, but that sounds way too expensive. And I would love to do all of this and just go enjoy my summers. This is the perfect episode for you. So really excited to have Suzy on today. Hey, Suzy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I first, so we met when we were at FinCon, so it's a financial conference, and we got the chance to have lunch and talk for about an hour and a half. And you were telling me a little bit more about world schooling. Hey, we spend, couple months to almost half a year over in Spain, sometimes other places, and that sounds amazing. So I was like, hey, let's bring you on the podcast. So just to start, like, what exactly is world schooling and how does it differ from traditional homeschooling or travel-based education?
Yes, I love this question because it gets to incorporate travel, right? So world schooling is when we combine travel with learning. We're using the world as our classroom. Now, of course, we can take a world schooling mindset if we are in our home base, if we're not always on the road, because sometimes that does not always happen or we can't always be traveling. So for us, that looks like when we're in our home base in Colorado, we're incorporating podcasts that are very travel oriented, like Culture Kids is one of our favorites. We're going to local cultural festivals. Right now, we're actually hosting an exchange student from Brazil. So she's incorporating her foods and her culture into our household. We also like to read a lot of diverse books. So I think world schooling can be a mindset that is attainable from a home base, like from wherever you're typically living. But it is also really fun when you can combine it with traveling. So that means taking learning outside of the classroom. I think of it as really experiencing parts of the world and looking at it from that real world learning. So history is a great way to world school. Like when we're in Spain and we're touring these Roman ruins, like that is not just reading about this history in a book about the Roman times, but really bringing it to life. And also the math part, right? When you're traveling, you're doing currency exchange. You're like, how much does this cost? You're budgeting. And we really try to include our kids in that. They also like to ask for stuff every day. And so we give them a budget during, especially some of our faster travels, and they can earn euros or whatever currency we're in by letting me take photos of them because they don't really like to take photos, but I would like to have them and just for our family. But so it's a way they can earn, they can help out, and also they're spending their money because there's multiple opportunities for kids to buy stuff along the way. Or if they want, a third ice cream for the day, that's out of their own budget. I also think of it from a language perspective, being exposed to lots of different languages, it is just really hard to do that in your home base if it's a monolingual culture. And so traveling gets you into these different places where you can really experience what it's like to hear and speak different languages. So world schooling is really just taking traveling out into the world. And this may differ from homeschooling because it's homeschooling might be where they're not intentionally taking that world global mindset. And then also it's often done in the home base. Though there are plenty of families who maybe homeschool in their home and world school on the road. And there's no one right or wrong way to use these words. It's really whatever fits the family. But that's how we consider world schooling is really just taking learning out into the world.
I love it, man. I'm thinking through when I was a kid, like if I got to go, like you said, if you're in Spain and that's how you're learning history, like I would have been such a better student. Or like, sitting in the classroom and you had to do, you had 60 seconds to do the subtraction, addition, times tables, math, right? If you just throw that into currency exchange, like that would be so much more fun. So
Yes,
I
it makes it more real.
yeah, exactly. But also, I think like the money side of stuff, like teaching your kids right from the beginning of, hey, like, yeah, sure, you can get that, but here's how you're one going to have to figure out what is that currency exchange. So you're getting their minds moving, but then also you're going to have to budget. So sure, if you want all those things, it's not like we're at home where, okay, we go to the store once a week. Like, no, we're out and about, we're doing things. So kind of getting them to think, on their toes and learn that way is awesome. So I love that. So when you're going over to these places, like you mentioned Spain, you live in Colorado, are you going for a month? Are you going for 3 months, 6 months? Like, how does that all work?
Yes, this really kicked off in 2022. My kids were at the time 3 and 5, and we did a full 2 months in Canada, road trip to Canada. So that was our test drive adventure of renting our house out in Colorado, my husband working remotely, being with the kids and being together, and how to do that on the go. But we had the comfort of our own car and a lot of the kid friendly stuff in there. And then we moved to Spain in August of 2023 for a full school year. And we rented a house out there, and the kids were in school because one of our main goals is multilingualism. And so they were in school there. And then we realized we loved it so much. And we also love Colorado and our family and our friends here. And I was able to still work when we're here. So we have since done half and half, where we're in Spain January to June, travel in the summer. We're in Colorado in the fall. So we'll be back to Spain in January. And then, we're taking it really like 6 months by 6 months. So I hope that we can keep going with this. But, my kids are now 6 and 8. So it is important to take into account their considerations. But as a family, I feel like we've had the best of both worlds to be able to be really slow traveling, like in one location of Spain, really deep diving into parts of Spain and the community there, while also doing some travels around Europe in the summer, and then also being with our friends and family in Colorado in the fall. And I love fall in Colorado. We've
Yeah.
been able to get some skiing in before we go back. So it's kind of like for us right now, it's a great combination.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, like what inspired you to do that? And then so like when you're in Spain and you're at home, are you doing all of the homeschooling or are you hiring someone there? Like how does that all work?
Yes, good question. So, what inspired us was, well, what makes it easy for us is that my husband grew up in Germany, and so he has an EU passport, so do my children. So that unlocks a long-term stay in the EU. I have a 5-year residency that we achieved the first year we were in Spain. So that is attainable for other people that don't even have EU passports through other visas. But for us, it was pretty straightforward. It was a guarantee we could be there for extended period of time. And then as far as let's see, what was your other question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just are
Oh,
you doing are you
yes,
doing the
the
schooling? Are
schooling.
you hiring someone? How does that all work?
Yes. And as far as schooling, we looked at a German school in Spain, and we really went with whatever German school accepted us first, which was the one in Sevilla. And the reason why we chose this was because we wanted the kids to have more German exposure, not just from hearing it from my husband, but to have a little bit more of like an academic sense to it. And, more than
Hey, I wanted to take a quick break to say thank you so much for tuning into the show. The only way the show grows is through listeners like you helping us share it. So if you're enjoying the show, it'd mean the world to me if you hit that 5-star rating, shared it with a friend or family member who's ready to travel more, save money, or just needs a little bit more inspiration and that nudge. And if you're posting about it on Instagram, go ahead and tag Itinerary Boss, and we'll make sure to reshare it and shout you out for giving us a shout out. Thanks so much for the support. It truly means a lot. And now back with the
more
show.
than just the immersion piece. But then, really, we know the Spanish is a very important language. And I know how kids' brains are sponges and they can soak this up. I mean, there are many people in Europe who speak 3, 4, 5 languages. And if you start from a young age, it's very attainable. So we wanted Spain for that piece. Plus, I wanted to learn Spanish more than I wanted to continue with my German, just because it's more useful in many, many countries throughout the world and in the US, especially in my line of work in healthcare. So Spain was a great place to land. The weather's great, the culture is amazing, the family friendly, the kid friendly aspect. And then it is I guess, considered a private school, but it's really affordable compared to what our prices are for even like a daycare in the US. So for us, it's worth to just pay the expense to have this access to the school while we're there, even if we're not there.
Mhm.
Because when they're here in the US, we do a Spanish dual language school that is public. So there is an expense piece to it, but considering we would be investing in their language learning anyhow, this school comes with the community. We've met some great friends. They're also getting to do lots of different activities. So we are right now world schooling by incorporating into local schools. I can see how this will maybe shift at some point as our kids get older and can take a little more of an independent nature to their schooling, that we could do some more fast travel or some online schooling. But for right now, and I think younger ages, it works really well because of that language exposure, which we would have to invest a lot more effort into to do if we didn't already have a school environment that was allowing the kids to get a bunch of that.
Okay, yeah, because my next question is, I'm just thinking, right, if I have, friends who have kids who are getting ready to maybe go to preschool or, right, they're in daycare or they're wanting to travel, like, oh, school schedules, I can't do this with this and that. Like, how do you think about that? Like, how do you kind of balance? Hey, we're going to do X amount of months here I'm in Charlotte, at this Charlotte school. Is it a public school for half that, or is it, hey, I'm finding another school? And then how are you, like, what are you even searching, right? I mean, obviously, your husband has the background of German, like, that, but if someone's in their first step of, I don't even know where to start, like, what would some of your suggestions be there?
That's a good question because you're right. There is going to be an expense to preschool and schooling in the US. So our take was that the cost of one kid for preschool was the same as two kids at private school in Germany. So that first year, I felt was like we're either spending it here or there. We might as well go get a cool opportunity out of this.
Yeah.
And there are international school databases. So if someone wanted to be a full school year in a location, that's a great place to start because they do not require you to have residency before you apply. I mean, again, they want your money. So they will take your money if there's a spot available. If you want a public school opportunity, often you have to land in a country and achieve residency prior to being able to enroll in public school. So some people will start with a private. And then if they decide to stay, they'll transition to public, especially if cost becomes a concern at that point. There are a lot of world schooling hubs and opportunities to land in a location for a shorter period of time. And there are many resources. The Facebook groups are kind of the go-to for many people originally, but Boundless Life is a great opportunity for someone that is just starting out. So this is an organization that really started after the pandemic. They are now up to like 8 locations around the world. I mean, many in Europe, also in Uruguay, and they're opening Japan next year. And so what it is these 3-month cohorts. So you're signing up for 3 months at a time. The kids are at the education center during the day. There's co-working, there's accommodations, there's community for the family. So these come with a price point. You're getting a full package tour. But if that is where someone is starting out and the price point isn't as much of a concern as I'm not really sure how to even start, these kind of one and done opportunities do exist and they're a great place to start. And then once you get into the lifestyle, if you want to continue, you start to learn those skills and those tricks and where to look for these opportunities. And you can maybe venture off on your own. But I think Boundless Life is a great place for someone to start, even if they're just learning about it and it might not be that exact one, but it opens the door for what opportunities are possible.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's super valuable because I think you've obviously done it for a while. So like, and you host a podcast on it, right? So I think if people are more interested, you should obviously go listen to Suzy's podcast. I'm sure you provide so many tips and tricks and just like, hey, here's our lessons learned. So that's where I would direct people to if you want to dive deeper, like go listen to her podcast. But yeah, I'm just thinking through like when you're just getting started out, it's like this is a lot. What about visas? Like if I like how do I juggle, right? And I know what you mentioned, like, hey, we have a house, we rent it out when we're there, we do that. So I think it's, thinking through those steps of, if you do own your home and you want to rent it, I mean, if it's furnished and you're cool with renting it out, like that's a simple way that then a lot of the times it's probably going to cover your cost and that's where you try to find too, like if you're traveling internationally, you can find places that are going to be significantly cheaper than I'm guessing Denver, right? Because Denver's getting more and more expensive. So, like, just thinking through some of those strategies. And if you aren't in that, if you don't own a home and you're just renting, like, strategizing on that. There's plenty of that gives you even more flexibility. I am curious, just like on the visa side, for some of the hubs, like, what does that look like? Like, if someone's wanting to get started there, what would you say around that?
Absolutely. There are many countries that allow 180 days. Like Mexico is kind of one that is usually offers that 180. So that is something where people might opt to stay there for longer. And maybe if they do a half and half with their home base in the US and then they do the other half of the year there, they wouldn't necessarily have to spend a lot of time and effort to do a long-term residency visa in that regard. And then as far as the Schengen, which is the when people are in Europe, they do need to be aware of the Schengen. And that's the 90 days in of 180 days, which is one reason these boundless life cohorts are in 90-day, 3 month chunks, because it allows you a chance to pop in, do that, then maybe do a cohort outside of Schengen, or do something else and then come back for a different one. So, certainly, if not wanting to get a long term visa or residency somewhere, that would be important to think about what those days are, the in and out. There are a lot of other world schooling hubs and opportunities that are shorter than that, maybe 1 month at a time. There's a friend is running some in Vietnam throughout this. Like from now until April, that are like 3 weeks at a time. So it gives you that sense of community for a while, but you can pair a few of those together or just pop in for 3 weeks and keep going. So it really depends on the speed that someone wants to travel, where they want to go, and then really just taking some time to learn what those opportunities are. I just interviewed a woman last week who has been world schooling for almost 10 years. She runs a course on it and she features all those different opportunities for it. And at the end of the day, it can be quite easy-ish, depending on the country, to find a nanny or a tutor. So maybe if you don't want to like coordinate one official hub or schooling opportunity, you're going to get a local person that can help you with the language piece and maybe some childcare piece. And that frees you up to work a little bit while also getting your child exposed to the language. So it's really just a matter of what someone's priorities are and then piecing it together with that. And then I do encourage if someone wants to stay somewhere long term, like we were in Spain for 10 months, that allowed us our chance to get that visa. We have friends that did the digital nomad visa, the non-lucrative visa is another opportunity for Spain. And then that allows us a chance to come and go a little bit more, which we really appreciate. But residency is one thing,
Yeah.
tax residency is another one to consider. So there are a lot of things that you're juggling as a world schooling family. And that's part of the fun, I feel like, is what is everyone else doing? What do we want to do? How do we make this fit for our lifestyle? It is certainly easier to just stay in your one house
Yeah.
and not have to get it ready to rent it out or deal with things from afar. But I feel like the trade-off is that we get to live this lifestyle. We get to be in Spain for extended period of time. It's not just a 1 or 2 week vacation, which again, nothing wrong with that. If that's what someone can fit in, I think that's great. That's where points and miles can be really helpful because it alleviates some of the biggest expenses of those short-term trips. But I think what people find is, within 1 or 2 weeks, you're somewhat more exhausted at the end than you are invigorated, and you wish you had more time. So if people can budget for more long-term and slow travel, it really does open up a world of opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. So great segue into points and miles. But first, before, so I don't forget, like how much when you talk about tutors and talk about maybe daycare, any of that,
Yes.
like, and I know it's going to vary from region to region, but if someone's starting out maybe in like the most common world schooling region, or they want to just go try it out for maybe a summer, so they're like, okay, maybe this is something we want to do. Like, what does that kind of run or cost?
Yes, good question. So for Spain, our school is about 450 euros a month. So for two kids, that's about 900 euros, which is about 1,000. The exchange rate is not in our favor right now. And so that was less than one kid of preschool for us. And
That's
again, now
like
our kids,
it's
yeah,
a third of daycare.
exactly.
That's
It's
it.
not too bad. So, we do pay a little extra for some after school and lunches and different things. There are always extra expenses with kids. But that is really doable. I just spoke with a family. They did like preschool basically in Mexico City when they were there about 2 years ago with a 2 and a 4-year-old at that time, and she budgeted around 1,500. That was for a full day. And then I've had people, nannies, or you're looking at whatever like the local maybe hourly wage could be, which I imagine is going to be less than whatever country someone is coming from. Now, things like Boundless Life, where you're getting a full education center, all the resources, the accommodation, the co-working, those can run, I've heard, between 8 to 10,000. Somewhat depends on the season and the location, a month. But if that is the majority of your expenses, and now you're really just paying for maybe food on top of that, you really kind of look at your budget holistically. And I think a lot of people, when they travel long term, they will mix it up. They'll be in countries where their budget goes further. I've had families tell me that they can be in Vietnam for 3,000 for a month with
Mhm.
accommodations, and then maybe they're doing like a part-time preschool. Most places will have English schools, which offer like a kind of segue into the community where there's someone that's going to speak the language you speak, but then they're also going to be able to offer services or provide care or schooling. So those are great opportunities. So maybe you'll balance lower cost of living countries with higher cost of living countries. And just kind of depends what people are looking for. As kids get older, they might be doing more online schooling, which is really a wide gamut. You can spend a lot of money on online classes, or you can pick and choose some of the most important ones and then give kids this like these topics that they need to really delve into on their own. So there's quite a variety there, but we've done some outschool classes. I mean, you could maybe get by with like 300 a month, getting almost all your major core subjects, if that was important to you, covered with per month with online schooling. So it can run the gamut, but I would consider, how much a family needs that time for their children to be in a schooling for work purposes and things like that. And the more time, it's probably going to add up. And then also the longer you're in a location can play a role, being able to be there for a long time. School tends to be the most inexpensive. And when we're in the US, it's public school. I try to make sure that my kids are there on the day that it counts for the funding for the school district. So if we disenroll later and we leave the country, at least they were there getting the funding for that first part of the year. So that matters to me. But having the public school backup in the US, it's like we can come and go.
Yeah.
Kids are young. My kids are quite flexible jumping in. So it really depends on the ages and stages of the kids as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think they're not only are they learning, whether that's online, whether that's just at a different, wherever they are, they're also learning the different cultural things. So like they're going right. And I think that's huge because they're not just in the US where they're only learning about this culture and they're only this is how it is. Because I think when you go to different countries, right, you travel more and more, you become one, more humbled, but two, you then just realize like, hey, I'm really thankful for this because this isn't as common in other places. So it really just gives you a different, like when you have a conversation with someone who travels a lot versus someone who goes to, I always like to dog on Myrtle Beach just because we grew up going there for AU basketball tournaments. But like someone who goes to Myrtle Beach every year, like they have a different perspective than I do going to 20 countries, right? Like, and it's just like you kind of can see, and when you have those conversations, it really shows out. So I think when people go to other countries, I always like to ask them if there's their first time going to Europe or somewhere. I go, how'd you like it? Oh my gosh, I love it. I would love to go back. Like that was amazing. Like the food, this, that. I didn't feel like I, couldn't walk after I ate this big meal. Like just so many different things. So I love that. I've had a couple other parents who have come on who have done like they go spend their summers abroad and like just and I always like to ask like what did it do for your kids and exactly in 10 probably 5-10 years like you're gonna see that impact that it had so I applaud you for you doing that but I want to get to points and miles because I know that's where we like started nerding out when we were at the conference and right like that's my people who listen to this are a lot of times higher spending business owners so they have a ton of points and miles and either they're not using them right they're wasting them on poor redemptions like gift cards statement credits right Amazon gift cards that's where like this is a whole new unlock because if you're a business owner that you don't have to be in the weeds and you're just right you have a couple calls or you run a remote you have a remote company where you can work anywhere like that's a huge unlock. And then you can offset a lot of the hotel flight costs. So I'm just curious, like your strategy, how do you all leverage points and miles? Obviously the flights to get over there, but then once you're over there, how do you stretch them further? Are there any creative strategies you use to offset some of the cost?
Yes. I first discovered the points and miles on a Barcelona to Denver in like 2012. So it was like mind blown that I could fly for like just miles and points. It was great. So yeah, we've been on this adventure for quite a while. We're definitely keeping track, doing the sign up bonuses, trying to stay up on the ever changing programs. And I will say it does get overwhelming at some point. So I don't blame some of your listeners that have maybe regret some poor redemption. It is just hard to 100% stay on top of it. So that's great. You offer this resource as well, right? This service to make sure people are getting the most for it. So the benefit of slow travel is that you often need less plane tickets because if you are traveling as a family, you need a couple of tickets. And I know that adds up. I have so far stuck us all in economy because it makes our points and miles go further. But I think if people have more points than they know what to do with, getting that flight where it's the overnight flight, being able to do that in anything but economy, like even first or business class, would be amazing. Just showing up more rested than we do when we're back in economy for the overnight flight. It's like our kids are zombies. We had a suitcase stolen because we were so tired the first day we showed up in Spain. So I I would encourage people to utilize. As far as so we try to make sure all of our flights are covered with points and miles. And really, if we're slow traveling, we're doing like a round trip flight from Colorado to Spain once a year. So I booked the flight that came back this July, and then the rest of the round trip is in January. So it's a very long round trip, but it does allow us that opportunity to book it as a round trip, which is usually cheaper. And I have found, I play around with the Chase Travel portal. I've looked at the transfer partners. I will say I'm not an expert with the transfer because I find that sometimes the portal allows us to minimize the fees part of it and really use all our points for the cost of it, for the flight part of it. And then you get the ease of booking within the portal. And then also, but now that the Chase redemptions have changed with this points boost, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's going to be as beneficial. When I was booking at 1.25, it was at least better
Yeah.
in that regard. But as far as when you're over there, what I find is that you can really save on accommodations. And that might look like using, so I don't use as many points for hotels necessarily, but even booking in the portal and then your $50 credit. I mean, I've stayed in places where it's like $40 a night in some smaller part of Spain, and you can actually book those through the portal. And it really does cut down on that. And so even though if I transferred it to a larger hotel, conglomeration, but they don't have those in all the places that we want to go. So you can still use these points and miles in various locations. And then also from a way kind of just to save on costs overall, we've looked at things like trusted house sitters. So you're doing home sits in places with some pet sitting incorporated, some home exchange, some people like us house swap. So that's one way to consider it. If you were to do a house swap, which a lot of people in Europe would like to house swap with like homes in certain parts of the US, especially. And now your accommodation is covered, and then you can do the flights with points and miles. I mean, it just kind of opens up where really all you're paying for is your activities and your food, which you would
Yeah.
be paying for in whatever location you're in anyhow. So I think that you can really unlock a lot of opportunities with points and miles. What I would love to hear maybe from you is if we do go to Japan next year, that is going to open up a whole new world of like getting from Denver to Tokyo. I'm like, it's my goal. I'm about a year out perhaps from that. And I want to set up my points and miles so that we can get all that paid for and taken care of with points and miles. So that is kind of my next goal. And I know that sometimes this requires planning further out, right?
Yeah.
It's like thinking ahead. Okay, what credit cards are going to help me if I do look into transferring? What do I need to open now? We have quite a bit of spending, I feel like, as a family of four. So it's not hard to meet the sign up bonuses with just daily spend, which I think is, of course, important, making sure you're not spending more than you can pay off every month. But that is something that it will be my next adventure is to get over to the Asia side of things for using points and miles.
Yeah, and I think that's the the nice part is too when I always preach this, it's like where are you flying out of? So Denver, you're on the West Coast, it's a little bit easier, but also for you, like you can take a positioning flight to one of the West Coast hubs that then have direct flights to Tokyo. Also, if you flew back to Chicago, right? If you flew out of one of, anywhere that has direct flights, it makes it easier. And if you're looking at economy, that's going to be pretty easy. Japan Airlines and Capital One just started their partnership. They had a nice 30% transfer bonus. So it's just like knowing those things and transfer bonuses are huge. And if you're planning in advance, if you have miles and you get like our trip that we're going on, as we're recording this upcoming weekend, there was a 30% transfer bonus from Capital One to Qantas. And I booked like four of our flights using that where I saved like 20,000 Capital One miles just because I knew, hey, we're going on these American flights, but Qantas flies on them and I don't have enough American points. Like, so knowing those strategies is huge. But yeah, I mean, for you, you know this. And I think for people listening, it's like if you are going somewhere, it's gonna be a little harder for me to fly direct from Charlotte to Tokyo because there's no direct flights. So my thought is, well, why try to figure out availability from here? Why not just pay whether it's a cheap cash price or cheap points, and you can use tools like PointsPath to kind of compare those, which we had on the podcast. So go check out Julian Keel's episode if you haven't. But yeah, you can kind of figure that out. And then when you start playing with some of these tools that you're familiar with, Susie, but for some of those others, Seats.air is another good one that we utilize to then just find that award availability. And if you have that flexibility where you aren't trying to leave on a holiday, a Friday, come home on a Sunday, right? If you can have that flexibility, that's where you're going to find good award availability. And like Susie said, it's not unattainable to find whether it's business or whether it's economy on points, even with a family. I think that's a big challenge that people think is, oh, I have one kid, two kids, three kids. This isn't for me. That's not the case. It just comes down to right that flexibility, right? Being able to take maybe that positioning flight, and then also like, does it have to be business or does it have to be economy? And that's really where you can kind of figure that out. But a lot of this, but I think it's yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
figuring out where like do you guys want to fly in business? And if so, what are some of the best routes to get to Tokyo? And then since you have that flexibility, you're willing to take that positioning flight, go find that. And, if you are planning a year in advance too, so for 4 or 5 people, that makes it a lot easier. And you're probably not the type of person who wants to wait till 3 days before and try to find right. So that would be my suggestion, what I tell most people.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I do agree with the positioning. We often find that we can get in and out of Madrid to the US
Hmm.
much cheaper than also that connection to Sevilla. And it is a 2 hour train ride. It
Yep.
gives us a little bit of time in Madrid. So actually in January, we're landing in Madrid and then we can experience the Three Kings Parade. And then I have a late night train to Sevilla. And I just find that it allows us a little bit of time in Madrid, which is a great city. It's like an excuse to spend time the train. And I love trains, kids love trains. So if you can get to the major hub and then get to your destination through other means of transportation, it can really bring down the overall cost for a family. I mean, the trains, all four of us are 50 euros, I think, whereas, that flight from Sevilla to Madrid usually ends up being more than that for the family of four.
Exactly. And it's trying to figure out too, like, if someone's going to perfect example, like we have a wedding that's outside of Barcelona, I'm searching for award availability. I can find a ton to sharp from even from Charlotte direct, right? In first class or in business class on an American flight, well, Iberia flight, using American or Alaska miles, but to go to Barcelona, it's nearly impossible, even trying to go to different hubs. So like that's where it comes at, like you said, spend a day in the city, maybe half a day, hop on a train, and the trains in Europe are, I mean, you're pretty much first class and they're amazing because you can work, you can sleep, like, yeah, and you can go to different ones. So that's definitely a really good strategy.
I'm actually jealous of the Charlotte to Madrid connection is a direct flight because we took that last year from it was from Madrid to Charlotte to Denver. And we got stuck in Charlotte overnight. But I have a cousin there. We stayed at her house. It actually was a very wonderful opportunity to spend more time with her. So
Yeah,
I find that, but planning travel when you have flexibility, you know that things can come up, you have a backup plan, it makes it part of the process. Flights are
exactly.
not always seamless, but if we can go into it with an open mind and some flexibility, and building that in is helpful, especially with kids and being able to slow travel. It's like I almost don't plan on doing anything the first couple days. We're getting over jet lag, we're just settling in, we're getting some food. It means that if we're delayed, we didn't miss anything much. So I like that. The flexibility is key.
100%. I think that's another good, you bring up a good point, like positioning flights too, when people are thinking about that, it's like for example, you had, family in Charlotte, like we're doing a flight to when we go to South Africa next year, and my best friend lives in outside the DC area. 10 minutes from Dulles. We're flying in and out of Dulles on two different airlines. We were like, hey, worst case, if we have something happen or, we can fly up there, spend a day and a half with them and make the most out of it. So it's just like thinking through those things. If some of those hubs have award availability, that's very, very important.
And stopovers
Yeah.
are something that a lot of airlines offer. We're actually looking at going through Istanbul on Turkish Airways because now Sevilla to Istanbul to Denver. And so it seems like it's the opposite direction at first, which it is. But if we get to spend a couple days in Istanbul, it would just add to the adventure, kind of ease into the whole travel leg of it. I love the idea of looking into that. We've done Reykjavik before. I know Dublin offers those through TAP that you can do the port in the major Portugal cities. So that is a way to just add to the vacation when you're already making a long flight, give you a little break, something different to break it up.
Yeah, we're going through Istanbul from South Africa back to Dulles. We're not doing a stopover because it's on two separate tickets, but we plan on having, for people who don't know what a stopover is, we plan on having a full deep dive episode on that with our airline series. So this is a perfect little segue.
Awesome.
I love that you're teasing it. But yeah, and I'm excited you said that 'cause a lot of people, we talk to want to go to Iceland, want to go to Dublin, right? And it's a direct flight from Charlotte to Dublin, and from Dulles and a couple other places on the East Coast to Iceland. So yeah, I love that you're teasing that up for us. But before we wrap up, Susie, I think just yeah, understanding from if someone's trying to get started with slow travel, world schooling, like what would your 1 to 2 biggest tips be for them if they wanted to just start doing it today?
Oh goodness, 1 to 2.
You,
That's the
you,
hard part, I
you
think.
can give me
No, I
one.
know this. Yeah, no, this is great. I would first, so I'd recommend just from the money side of things, the financial side of things, is think about like, okay, today this is my income, these are my expenses, right? That's pretty easy to track. But let's think forward. If we are slow traveling, what income are we bringing with us? Are we renting our house out? Is that covering that expense? Put together like a rough but like monthly budget of what you will have while you're traveling. And then look at the countries that you're interested in. Start to look around. Like you'll see that a 1 month apartment rental is sometimes the cost of 2 weeks, right? So you can really extend your travel dollars or euros or pounds if location and then use that as like a jumping off point for other adventures perhaps. And then, food is going to be an expense you have in any location, and the longer you are in one location you can cook more, and so that helps in that regard. And then just thinking about activities, what we try to do is like once or twice a month there is a bigger activity we do, whether we're renting a car to go somewhere or we are taking a longer trip, we're going for a hike, we're doing some big event in town. And then the rest of the weekends are really just living daily life. What thing is already happening in this community that we can go experience. And when you slow down, you have time to see, oh, in 3 weeks, there's this like weekend festival that I never would have known about if I was here for 3 days, but I'm here for a month. Let's go check this out. And I think kids, what I find is they don't always care exactly where they are, to be honest. And so you really don't need to hustle and try to see everything in the world with kids. Like
Yeah.
they are going to remember the weirdest things. They're like, that meal was so amazing. I was like, it's chicken. We have that at home. But because it's pollo a la plancha, it is so much better apparently. So, that is, I think, the seeing the joy through the kids' eyes is wonderful, but it also helps you realize, and this is why, to be honest, I'm very happy I traveled a lot before kids. I feel like I've seen a lot, and so now really it's just an opportunity to see through their eyes and to go to new places with them. But I've kind of adopted the joy of missing out. Like there's many parts of this world I will never see, and that's okay, right? And so it's an ongoing process of adding things to our ever-growing wish list while also being realistic with what's possible with our financial means, with our ability to accrue, and then spending them just does add up quickly with a family of four sometimes. So I would say start with just the budget. Well, okay, first start with the dreaming because that's the fun part, right? Picture where you want to go, and then throw some of the financial and logistical parts of that. You know, I feature a lot of those with people when they talk on my podcast. I think that's just helpful to hear what is possible and to know that really you can make any of your travel dreams a reality with just the right planning and resources and connecting with the right people, learning the right way to cash in those points and miles to really unlock those opportunities for your family.
That's awesome. Great way to end. And I think, right, it just comes down to planning. That's really the ultimate thing is in when this goes live, we're going to be getting close to 2026. So everyone's going to be on that. I'm going to crush this year and hopefully they stay on it more than 15 days. So the goal is right, plan and like you said, just if you want to check out more that Suzy talks about with some of her guests and learn a little bit more about the subject definitely go check out her podcast because she's a wealth of knowledge. She brings on people who have done it. So don't try to DIY it, go down, 15 blogs and 15 Reddits and then get overwhelmed. Just go listen to the experts like her. So that's where people can go check out Suzy. But Suzy, anywhere else? Do you have a website? Anything else you want people to go check out if they want to learn more?
Yeah, SuzyMayWander.com is the website. And then that's the handle on Instagram and Facebook. And on Instagram, I try to share a lot about the episodes, but a little bit more about our travel and our ways of thinking about the financial and logistical planning of that. It's also fun to feature other world schooling opportunities through there. So there are some people doing some amazing work in many countries. And I love being able to shine a light on those through my podcast, like Deliberate Detour down in Mexico and Peru, really connecting with local teachers and putting on these amazing opportunities for families to really dive deep into the culture. And some of these are a week. The pop-ups that I've hosted in like Berlin and Sevilla and Cordoba, it's a week of connection, but then there's ones that are 3 months. So there's just so many opportunities. The more you get started on this, the more you're going to want to travel. So just be ready that you will maybe not be satiated after just one trip.
It's just like points and miles. Once you get down the rabbit hole, you don't come back, but then you realize how awesome it is, and it just becomes a
Mhm.
lifestyle. So I really appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on. This was great. And again, that's for people who are first-time listeners or you're a repeat listener. Thank you so much for tuning in. But that's why we like to bring on experts like Suzy to talk about this because I don't know anything about it, and she just taught me a bunch, and I'm excited to share this with you all. Again, if you're a first-time listener, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe. That way you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you think this is valuable, make sure to share it with a family or friend. That helps us grow the show. And I think Suzy deserves a 5-star review. So if you want to hit that 5-star today, that helps us continue to reach more people and share the great words that Suzy just said. So really appreciate you coming on, Suzy. We will talk to everyone next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Ross. I appreciated it.
Yeah, thanks.